How long you been doing that?
So, in particular, getting into being a commissioner, it's just something that happened, right? It wasn't something I was looking for.
Hold on. Hold your thought. This sounds like it should be in.
Oh, the long story short, I wasn't in. I wasn't getting into politics.
That's what we want to know the story.
Yeah, we'll get to the story, but the opportunity presented itself,
Right.
And it was just a matter of, I guess, being at the right place at the right time.
Welcome to the Dash Group Chat Podcast. I am your host. They call me G, and today we have a friend in the room. We have the New Jersey Passaic County Commissioner, Orlando Cruz. How are you, my brother?
I'm good, G, man. Happy to be here, brother. We've been talking about this for a while, and
Yes, sir.
I'm just humbled at the opportunity to be given a platform to tell my story.
Listen, I am humbled that we connected, right? You told me, hey, G, I would love to join the platform. I would love to tell my story. And I specifically told you in the DM, you was one of the people that I wanted to connect with once I had this platform up and running. And I'm glad you're here, my brother. How you been?
I've been good, man. Just, managing the day-to-day stuff and really just staying out of trouble, man. Trying to stay focused, stay busy, and making sure that I kind of maintain myself at the right places, opportunities that present themselves for me and my family, and just, taking what life throws at me.
That's right. And you are also a father of boys only.
Yeah, three boys.
Three boys. We're going to get into all of it, of course, but I just wanted to give you that warm welcome and thank you for joining the podcast. And thank you for being here with us. How are you, Jay?
I'm good.
You good? All right, perfect. I just want to make sure I mention you, of course. You're here. But Orlando, I want to, we've known each other for a long time. I want to dive right in because what interests me most about our connection, our reconnection, is, your transformation into the political world. And I want to know, and we're going to dive into the hows and what it takes and, what's the process. But how did you end up in such an iconic role in the Passaic County in New Jersey?
Yeah, so, at the end of the day, I've always lived by the kind of mentality of keeping myself ready for anything, right?
Right.
As long as you maintain yourself ready and prepared, where when opportunities present themselves, you kind of take advantage of it. If it makes sense for me, for my family, for anyone, I think that's in life in general. My father-in-law always says that luck doesn't exist. What exists is timing and preparation. So you maintain yourself prepared. When the time is right, things will just connect.
Right.
And so growing up, my family was always involved in community activism, community outreach. My grandfather was very involved in the church and planning community events. So it was kind of always seeing what it was to be involved in a larger scale production that involved servicing the community.
Right.
My mom, at an early age, worked on a lot of campaigns of some of the local elected officials in the city of Patterson and in Passaic County. So it's kind of always been around me and always sparked an interest that I said to myself, one day when the time is right and I'm ready, I would like to maybe pursue a career in politics. I didn't know what, where, when, why, but I knew that if I, maintain myself prepared, when the time is right, it'll just happen.
Right.
And ultimately, that's really what came down to, the opportunity presenting itself.
Right.
Back in March of 2023, there was a Passaic County commissioner that was coming off of the board because he moved out of state. Okay. And I knew the gentleman. I knew he was a good brother of mine. And at that time, the committee was looking then for a person to replace that commissioner. His seat was up for re-election that year anyway.
Right.
So they started with looking for potential candidates to run for that seat. The opportunity came up. I was asked to apply and go through the steps of, becoming a commissioner. There was an application process, a screening process. Right. So I was told that I should apply for it. And I said, okay, no problem. Look, like any other job opportunity, right? You throw your name in the ring, you apply for it, and if it works out, if it works out. If it don't, then at least you say you tried, right?
How old were you when this transition in your life was happening? Because I know you're a New Jersey native, right?
Yeah.
Patterson's own, right? And you mentioned that the motivation came from an early age
Yeah.
with seeing your mother in the political world. But at what age did this opportunity present itself?
So I'll tell you the first time I kind of noticed that I had something right in me, maybe. And it was in high school. When I was in high school, so I was about probably 15 or 16 years old. I was probably either sophomore or junior. The high school that I attended moved into a new building. In that building, they had kind of a makeshift cafeteria. And the food that was coming out of that cafeteria was not up to par at all. It was packaged lunched. Sometimes you would receive a prepackaged burger or sandwich, turkey sandwich, bologna, whatever it was. Sometimes it had mold on it because from wherever it was sitting, right? And at that time, one of the administrators of the school system said, I'm grabbing a bunch of kids to come to the school board and complain about the quality of the lunches.
There you go.
And the principal at the time selected me as one of the representatives of the school to go and basically tell our story of the experience with the lunches. And that's kind of, I went there, I laid it all out. I advocated on behalf of my school and about my student body of the conditions of the lunches. And that's kind of, I walked away from that experience saying, I think I may be onto something here.
Right, knowing that you can make a change to some aspect.
To be given a platform to speak up for those that are the most vulnerable. People, they, not to sound too cliche, right? But they always say like to be the voice of the voiceless, right? So, not everybody has that kind of instinct of going out and speaking up. They might feel it inside, but they don't know how to express it, right?
Right.
And I've always had the knack of speaking my mind and to channel that energy in that capacity. I said, I noticed it in myself, and people around me said, wow, you kind of have something there. You'll always make a good politician one day or something like that.
There you go.
But again, I was 15, 16 years old, right? I was worrying about getting through high school.
Right.
And, if it happened at some point, but it wasn't in my head at that moment that that's the career I wanted to pursue.
These are the little things that just started happening, and it all connected later on, of course.
Correct.
But it started sparking the idea. Right.
Yeah, so it's almost, they always say this kid has the it factor, right? Or, you have that niche of being able to go walk into any room and feel comfortable and attract a crowd, like not be able to speak freely. And that's kind of what my style was developing.
Right.
And not being afraid.
It's okay.
Not being afraid to walk into a room and just jump right in and adapt to the environment.
Right.
You
could get that if you want. It doesn't matter.
No, I don't know if it was vibrating. Or
No.
It wasn't vibrating.
Yeah, don't worry
I'm
about
just put
it.
it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so just kind of understanding, like knowing that, I'm able to be in a room, adapt to whatever conversation is happening and feeling comfortable doing that. So kind of just putting all that together, that's kind of the personality that I was developing without even knowing, right? I thought I was just being normal.
Right.
And people would say, "Oh my, I couldn't do that. If if it was me, I wouldn't be able to say that. I wouldn't be able to speak in front of the crowd."
Right.
Now, when you kind of put all that, encapsulate all that,
right.
I told you before, DJing, that was part of it. That was being able to go into a room and command the crowd and control the crowd and speak on the mic. Right. That's where I got it from. Not being afraid to, be the center of attention in certain aspect or just run the program of an event. Like that was just natural for me.
Right, because you used to be a DJ as well.
Yeah.
Right? So you've been captivating audiences for a long time now.
I DJ for over 25 years. I really just hung it up during the pandemic. Right. And I always said to myself, the day I just lose interest in it, I'm going to stop cold turkey. I'm not going to try to drag it and it affect my performance in the future. Got it. So the minute I realize I don't have to do this anymore, I'm just turning it off. I'm not even looking back. And that happened during the pandemic when I realized I didn't need to DJ. There was a difference.
Okay.
The difference of wanting to DJ and thinking that I needed to DJ. And when I say need, I mean, financially thinking that I need to do this to make money. I always had a regular job,
Right.
but also DJ'd on the side, and most times made more money DJing than what my regular job was.
Yeah.
But when the pandemic hit and the DJ stopped, I said, wait a minute, I don't need to DJ. I don't need to do this to make money and to, live comfortably and pay my bills.
Right.
So I'm done. Because what was happening is for many years, I got caught up in a downward spiral cycle of thinking I had to DJ. And
Right.
what that caused was me missing out on life. I missed out on birthday parties and family gatherings, holidays, because I was always out DJing, thinking at that time that I needed to do it,
Right.
when in reality I didn't have to. And so I feel like fast forward now and given an opportunity, almost a second chance,
Right.
I want to be more involved in those moments, those memories. And once I realized I didn't have to DJ anymore, I was like, I'm done.
Those moments are vital. Those moments will be memories that you will carry, right? So those are very important, even for family, for kids. You want to be there in those moments that mean something to them, of course. And I'm glad the pandemic gave you that clarity, man. Pandemic gave many of us clarity, right? So now pandemic came, you stopped DJing. How do you shift your focus into politics? Now let's get into that story.
Yeah. So I worked for an entertainment company for many years, probably over 10 years. At that point, at the entertainment company, we were a part of what's a Chamber of Commerce business networking group, a membership-driven organization that puts businesses in the rooms networking with each other. So at the party company, we were a member of the Chamber of Commerce. I was the point person to go to the events and network with people. One of the chambers was the Patterson Chamber of Commerce. And so I would attend their events, connect with other, business people, try to sell our product, entertainment to other entities, corporate holiday parties. There I met the person that was running the chamber at the time.
Okay.
I got further acquainted with them. What I didn't realize is before working at the party company, I worked for Patterson Department of Public Works. Okay. And I spent like 3 or 4 years at the Public Works Department. One of the roles there was decorating the Christmas tree in front of City Hall during the holidays. Okay. What I then learned was that the gentleman from the Chamber of Commerce was the one who sponsored the tree.
Okay.
So we kind of made that connection of, hey, yeah, I'm working for this party company, but I'm from Patterson. I'm a Patterson guy. You've been around for a while. By the way, I used to decorate the Christmas tree that you guys sponsored. So it was that kind of instant connection.
Got it.
Fast forward a few years later, there was a position in Patterson, which is executive director of the Downtown Patterson Business District. Okay. What the Downtown Patterson Special Improvement District is it's like a homeowners association. So the properties of the Downtown Patterson have a management company that manages the promotion of the downtown district, the maintenance of it. So we have a maintenance crew that's on the ground 7 days a week, cleaning up the daily, litter, changing out the trash cans. So it's an enhancement program of the downtown business district to draw more people there. So in my dealings with the chamber and being around and kind of seeing what was going on, the executive director at that time of that program was leaving to take another job. Okay. The guy from the Chamber of Commerce said, hey, you should apply for this job. You're a Patterson guy. You're personable. I think you would fit this position.
At this point, you've known him for a couple of years.
At this point, I'd known him for a few years. So when I first connected with him through networking and working at the party company was around 2015. This is now 2018. So it's about 3 years. Okay. And he said, hey, you should apply for this job. I think you'd be a good candidate. I said, okay. So I looked into it more, kind of what it entailed and what the idea was. And so once I kind of figured it out, I said, you know what? Yeah, this is something that I think I would be interested in. Applied, went through the process, met with the board of directors in the interview process, and ultimately got the job.
Okay.
From what I was told, there was about 70 candidates that applied for the position.
I'm sure.
They narrowed it down to about 7, and kind of, I guess what got me the job was that I was from Patterson. No one else was from Patterson. They were from outside Patterson. And so that might have been what the board was kind of looking for. And so that was the seller, right?
I mean, that matters.
Yeah, no. And to a certain extent, I grew up in downtown Patterson. My mom worked in downtown Patterson. Right. When I got out of school, I went to her job and I stood there. I hung out downtown. Right. And so I was very familiar with the area, familiar with, the environment. So they were looking for a Pattersonian. They were looking for a Latino.
Okay.
And that was the other seller, because 70% of the businesses in Patterson are Latinos.
Okay.
Ultimately, I was selected for the position. So I started January 1 of 2019. Now I'm in downtown Patterson, full-fledged. Right. The gentleman from the Chamber of Commerce is still the president of the Chamber of Commerce. We shared an office.
Nice.
So I worked in downtown. I managed the district. I managed the programs there, the marketing, the events. We co-sponsored events with the city, like the tree lighting ceremony, summer concerts in front of City Hall where we hired bands, just to promote and highlight the downtown business district. Okay. So from there, I just got more involved. I was still involved with the chamber because now I'm the director of downtown Patterson. Okay. And from there, just continued to morph. I started joining local boards of nonprofits. Okay. I got invited to join Downtown New Jersey, which is an association of downtown executives statewide. Okay. So I'm on their board of directors now, learning more about economic development. Pandemic hits, everything kind of slows down a bit. And the president of the Chamber of Commerce decides to retire, not come back from the pandemic.
Okay.
Now
that was his timing.
Yeah. So he had been there for 20 years.
That's it. Yeah.
2020, it shuts down, right?
Right.
So I guess the summer of 21, he calls me and he says, "Hey, Orlando, I'm going to retire and I want you to take over the Chamber of Commerce." And I go, "Okay." Like, sure.
Right.
And
why not?
he's like, I'm have a board meeting to announce my retirement. There's some candidates that names got thrown around. I'll let you know how it goes. I said, right. No problem.
But he's throwing your name in the hat.
I was his recommendation.
Right.
So
right.
Fast forward now, he has the meeting, calls me back and says, "Hey, you're the guy." And I'm like, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah, when I presented you to the board, there was no doubt. It was a unanimous yes." So I was really appreciative of that. Now, I think it was June of 21, I assumed the role of president of the Chamber of Commerce while still being the executive director of the Downtown Patterson Business District. Both organizations work hand in hand, the synergy, because it's all about business advocacy, being a liaison for the business community to the government agencies, advocating for small businesses, being a representative for them, and being a voice for the business community,
100%.
Ensuring that they, any resource that comes from the state level reaches them, expanding the communication to them. And so that's kind of the role in both positions that I served, and I currently still serve. Now, fast forward.
And this is in 2021.
This is 21, yeah.
Right.
So 21, that happened.
Still in the midst of the pandemic.
Correct.
Right.
So after taking over the Patterson Chamber of Commerce and also still being the downtown Patterson, the director of the downtown Patterson Business District, at that time, the Patterson Chamber managed the Wayne Chamber of Commerce, which is a neighboring town. And so I assumed that role as well. So now I'm the Wayne Chamber president, the Patterson Chamber of Commerce president, and the downtown Patterson executive director. I'm serving on various nonprofit boards throughout the city that all work around social services, education, homelessness, drug addiction. So I'm on these boards. I'm on the Passaic County Health Coalition Board, which is around healthcare. So I'm kind of, dipping in all these places, kind of helping these organizations, being an advocate, a voice, giving them the perspective of the Patterson community,
Right.
Being involved there. I'm helping filming. Patterson became a huge filming hub throughout the pandemic and even after it, to the extent that Steven Spielberg came into town and filmed the remake of West Side Story.
That's very dope, man.
85% of the film happened in downtown Patterson.
Wow.
And so I was involved in the, production, the logistics of it every step of the way.
Wow.
And so just naturally in my role, what happens is when the film people come in, they're saying, okay, we're looking for this type of scenery.
Right.
And they come to me, they say, hey, Orlando, this is the vision we have. Where can we go? Can you guide us in the right direction? We need to go to this part of town. Who do we talk to? Kind of
That's
that
dope,
connector. Man. And so that began like exploding. And then once Steven Spielberg comes into a place to film, it just opens up the floodgates.
Listen.
Because now every production is like, well, if Spielberg went there, we want to go there. What did he see that we're not seeing?
And who did he connect with?
Absolutely.
And it's you.
And they come and, we had filming today. We had filming today in front of City Hall.
That's beautiful.
It's a production that starring Billy Crystal. It's an Apple series. Nice. And so we had Apple, Netflix all the time just coming to Patterson. Wow. Downtown Patterson in particular has a unique architecture about it. So it's designated as a historic district. The buildings have unique and historic architecture that can serve a purpose of being transformed into almost any era or period of time. Wow. So you have films that are depicted of the 40s and 50s and even 30s that get filmed there in 70s and 80s and so on and so forth. So it's just become a real hub to filming, and just naturally in my roles of serving downtown, serving the business community, I've become sort of that point person when they come in. Right. And then the city has created a great job in putting together a team between police and fire and DPW, where we really just guide them in the right direction. They're in and out, very low impact to the community. We kind of tell them the do's and don'ts ahead of time.
Right.
And we've been told that a lot of other cities kind of don't have that mechanism in place, so people like doing that. So now I'm doing all of this stuff. I'm involved.
This is just, you're building relationships.
That's really all it is, man.
Yeah.
I'm putting myself in positions for the next step, and I don't know what the next step is.
Right. Okay.
I'm preparing myself for whatever may come, and I'm not thinking about what it is. I'm just saying,
this is the next door that
whatever door opens, I'm ready for it. Right.
So now you're wearing 3 hats.
I'm wearing 3 hats,
right?
And they all they all work together. They're kind of all in the same environment. When I'm being asked to be a part of different meetings and stuff,
right?
Every hat that I'm wearing has a significant role in those meetings, but they all work. They're all the same almost, right?
It's all right. It's all relative.
Correct. And now, when we now kind of leaning towards how I became a county commissioner. While in my day-to-day with all this, my wife is an elected official.
Okay.
My wife is on the school board.
Okay.
My wife is the youngest elected official in the history of the city of Patterson. She was elected at 22 years old.
Oh, wow.
And she's been on the school board now. She's currently finishing her 3rd term, so going on 9 years. She was the president twice, being the first Latina to ever serve as president of the Patterson School Board. Patterson is the 3rd largest school district in the state of New Jersey.
Okay.
Over 50 buildings, 35,000 kids, currently with a budget of almost $1 billion. It's like $750 million.
Wow.
So she served as president twice in consecutive terms, so far being there for over 9 years. So when I met her, she was in her 2nd term, going for her reelection.
Right.
My kind of just being involved, knowing how my family was involved in politics and working campaigns, it was almost just natural for me to get involved and help her, right? And start guiding her and just diving right in to what she had already established with her team.
Right.
And And even that, like being invited to the first like meeting that she had with her team,
Right.
and they're like, "Here's the new guy that's with her. We don't know him yet,
Right.
but let's see what he brings to the table, right?"
Right.
And me just observing, and then when asked my opinion, giving my opinion, and saying, "Well, why don't we try this? Why don't we do this? And have you guys done this before?" They're like, "Oh, okay, this guy has some value, right? He brings something
Right.
nice to the table," and just now getting right in, right, and
Right.
working the campaign and knocking on doors and going out. So now I'm involved politically in my wife's campaign.
Wait, this is while you have the 3 hats.
Correct.
So you're really wearing 4 at that point.
Yeah, I guess if you call like a campaign manager
There
a
you go.
fourth hat.
Listen.
But now I'm involved in politics.
Right,
So
right.
I was in the private sector.
Right.
Now I'm involved in politics with my wife. I didn't shy away from it. When I met her, she was already elected. Right. It didn't turn me off. I said, no, this is what, and she, we talked about it when we first met. She goes, I'm elected. There's times where I'm in meetings late and, I might not be around or schedules might change. Like that's the dynamic. And I'm like, I'm good, man. I get it. Like my schedule's just as crazy as yours, right? So we're going to do this together. And that's kind of how part of the synergy that we found ourselves connecting with when we first met. And I'm like, okay, so now I'm involved in politics. I'm getting into the campaigning and I love it. I'm like, I love knocking on doors. I love talking to people. I love the planning of it. I love the strategy.
Right.
So we're in. We win her second election cycle. Now we're going. She's elected. I'm still doing what I'm doing. Now the third election cycle comes up, which was 2 years ago. And it's like, okay, here we go again, right? We're going back, doing what we got to do. Right. She wins again.
For the third time.
So now we have a kind of established credibility.
Right.
We've established that we're a force to be reckoned with, right? Yes. When it comes to politics in the city of Patterson and stuff. And we're flowing.
Everything is going.
Fast forward now, 2023.
Right.
There's a vacancy being presented on the Board of County Commissioners.
Okay.
The gentleman that was stepping down is a friend of ours, a friend of the family. We vacation together. He's a good brother of mine. I talk to him almost every day. Gotcha. He comes down. We know he's not running for re-election because he's not going to finish his term, which was up last year.
Okay.
So now the Democratic Party of Passaic County now needs to find a candidate to run for that seat.
Okay.
I was told to apply like any other job.
How many years have you been doing this at this point? What you've been doing, wearing the 3 hats? 4th, really. But.
So since 2018, 2019
right.
to 23.
We're looking at 5 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
So 5 years I'm involved in the community.
Right.
I'm at the current job roles. I'm with my wife now, and she's an elected official, and I'm kind of serving as an advisor to her. It's just I'm
You're front and center everywhere.
Correct.
Okay.
And so now this opportunity presents itself. We know that the party was going to look for a candidate to replace the guy who was retiring, who's a friend of mine's. I knew he was retiring. We had talked about it. Right. I get a phone call, and they say, "Hey, Orlando, I think you should apply for this job. I think you should apply to be a commissioner because you go through a screening process with a committee. You have to submit your interest, application, background, whatever."
Got it.
And I said, okay, no problem. I mean, the worst thing is to look ahead and, fast forward and be somewhere where I said, man, I should have tried that.
Right.
Right. I never want that feeling.
Right.
I'd rather try it and it not work out than to live with the regret of not trying it.
Let me stop you right there. That's very important you said that because a lot of us in certain moments of our lives, we feel too nervous or too afraid to take that step. But I'm glad you surpassed that immediately. You said, no, I want to be that guy that I don't have regrets as I'm moving through my life, right? Yeah.
The worst feeling you can have is that what if, down the line, because it's going to kill you forever. It's going to bother you and you're not going to be able to go back and change it, right?
Never.
So I've always lived with the kind of mentality of shoot first, ask questions later.
There you go.
Right. And if it doesn't work out, it didn't work out because it wasn't intended for me to do it at that time. Right.
There you go.
But if I don't try, I will never know that.
Right.
And again, I think that goes across the board for anything you do in life. Mm-hmm. And so I put in the information. I did it. I went through the screening process and ultimately the committee selected me to be the candidate.
Okay.
So now I'm the candidate running for that county commissioner position.
Gotcha.
We have so just last year in 23, the primary election would be in June, general election in November. This is February of 23. I was selected by the committee to run on the ticket as the candidate for county commissioner.
Right.
So I'm in now. I'm good. I'm running. I'm running the campaign. We're all in, right?
While wearing all the hats.
I'm still, everything else. At that point, February, March, April, May, so my wife is about 6 months pregnant.
Okay.
With our second child. And I spoke to her, before going into the application process, I had talked about it with her.
Right.
And said, hey, is this something that we want to do? Because once we're in all in, right? Mm-hmm. And she's like, we talked about it, and she was the first person to say, we're going to do it, but we're going to do it to win. We're not doing it to just try it out, right?
Right.
She's always had that mentality of we're not doing anything for fun.
There you go.
We're doing it because we're going to do it the right way, and we're going to do it with the intention to win.
Right.
We're not just testing the waters, right? Mm-hmm. And so I'm in. Now I'm the candidate. This is February. In March, the gentleman that was finishing his term resigns off the board.
Wow.
So now I'm the candidate running for that seat because we knew he wasn't running for re-election because he was leaving.
Right.
Now he resigns off the board. His term finishes in December. He comes off the board because he moves to Georgia.
Okay.
Now I'm the candidate for that seat. Now I'm then told, hey, you're going through the selection process again to fill the vacancy currently.
Okay.
So now as the candidate, I'm given the opportunity to then be appointed as a commissioner while running for that seat.
Right. Okay.
So he comes off. There's another kind of selection process within the committee of who's going to replace him currently. Because hypothetically, they could have appointed anybody to finish that term while I'm running to win it in November.
Right. Or left it vacant.
Or they could have left it vacant.
But it would have been too much time.
In most political scenarios like city council, and they won't leave a seat vacant because they need that vote for whatever is trying to move forward.
Understood. Okay.
So, but they could have replaced that seat at that moment. They could have appointed anybody to fill that term. And then when I get elected in November, I get appointed. I get sworn in January 1st, and I take the seat.
Right.
But no, they're like, okay, you're going to go through the process to now get appointed to the seat. You'll be kind of an incumbent because you'll now be running for a seat that you currently sit in. You gain the experience. It's a strategic move, right?
Of course.
So the selection process happens again through the committee. And ultimately, I was selected to then be appointed to the seat. So now we're in March, maybe third week of March. I think it was March 21st to be exact.
Right.
We're hosting a swearing-in ceremony for me to assume the role of county commissioner.
Okay.
March 21st, I'm now a county commissioner. Wow. My wife's 7 months pregnant at this point.
Wow.
So now I'm a county commissioner. So on top of running for the seat, I'm also now doing the work of a commissioner. I'm on all the committees now.
Wow.
I'm now being an elected, being a commissioner is working, serving on the committees, doing the business of the county.
Right.
While still all the other jobs.
Everything else.
Right. I haven't gotten rid of my job. I mean, for the most part, any elected position, whether it's city council or they're technically like part-time positions because most people still have a full-time job.
Okay.
And so now I'm in. I'm running, but I'm also being a commissioner at the same time, right? So I'm kind of like on the job training, so to speak. But we're killing it, man. We're out there, we're campaigning, we're knocking on doors, we're showing up to events, giving speeches, while I'm also being now brought up to speed on what's happening in the county.
I was just gonna say, because you're campaigning for the vote, but you're also getting, like you said, the on-hand training, right?
Yeah.
The work training. But at the same time, you get to see what it's about before you even go for the role.
100%.
Right.
Yeah, I don't have to, at that point when I start campaigning now, I don't have to tell people what I think I'm going to do.
Right.
I'm telling people now what I'm doing.
Right.
What are we doing as a county? Well, I'm telling you what we're doing.
That's a short time span for you to prove yourself
100%.
for the next.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
And so that's all happening at the same time. We go through the campaign process like any other campaign process.
Okay.
And now, the primary comes in June. We win the primary, myself and the slate of candidates that we ran together, my county colleagues. At that time, there was another commissioner that was up for re-election.
Okay.
And then our Passaic County clerk. So the clerk's office is where you would get your passport. You would do your deeds. They're in charge of elections. So that was the slate of candidates for the county.
Okay.
And so, we go through the process. And then in November, we ultimately get elected.
Right.
And now I'm there for a 3-year term, full 3-year term.
Wow.
While still having all the other jobs. But then, again, while that happened,
Right.
we had a baby come,
Okay.
and so on and so forth after that.
Listen, this is a movie, man.
Yeah,
This
it's
is
crazy.
You definitely
Yeah.
could make a Netflix series based on the last 5 years of your life, man. For real, for real.
I mean, 2023 alone was a movie, man. It was a roller coaster of emotions. And I know there's, we're going to get into some of that stuff, but
Right.
while all that's happening, we have a baby on the way.
Okay.
And then we didn't know what was, something happened with the baby that was also unexpected that kind of threw a curveball and everything as well.
Right. We're gonna get into that
Yeah.
in a moment. So now you are county commissioner for Passaic, right?
Passaic County, yeah.
Passaic County. You're wearing the other 3 hats.
Correct.
You are involved in the community every day.
And I'm still on all those other nonprofit boards as
Right.
well.
You're on the nonprofit boards.
Yeah.
You're just. It's kind of like you're the face of the county, of the area, right? So tell me a little bit about because what I want on this show, on the Dash Group Chat podcast, of course, is because knowing you and like when we met each other, of course, I met you as a DJ and all that stuff. None of this, what is happening now was in our minds, right? Look at life, right? That's kind of like where life takes you. And you gotta make sure you're ready to take on the roles, like you said before. And you've always been that type of guy. But I also want to inspire the younger generation to see how could they be that, right? How could they be involved in the politics and all that stuff? So in hearing your story, you took a lot of right turns, a lot of left turns, but it all led you to what you're doing now. To break it down a little bit, simple, like a simpler version of what you went through, like. How could a kid from Patterson fulfill your shoes at this point? Like they're looking at you.
Yeah.
They're looking to become something for their community. They have a voice for the voiceless, like you said before. They're that person. They're that kid. They're Orlando at 15.
Yeah.
What do you tell that kid?
Ultimately, is just get involved. So there's none of this was planned, right? But I feel like every phase of life, every experience that I experienced, all provided me with a certain set of skills and resources to be where I am today, right? And we don't know that at the time. We don't know when we go through something in life, why it's happening and where it can lead us in the future. We're just going through it, right? We may ask ourselves, man, what happened, But at the end of the day, everything happens for a reason, and everything kind of sets you up for the next thing, right? Everything is supposed to happen the way it's happening.
Yeah.
But you in hindsight, we look back now and say, oh, that helped me, be where I am today, right?
Even if it's painful.
Even if it's painful, you got to go through it. And you don't know, at the moment, you don't know why you're going through it, but there's always a purpose for everything, right? And we can get into a kind of a religious thinking of it or a faith-based thinking, but at the end of the day, man, everything you go through, it sets you up for the next phase of your life. And but again, you don't know it at the time.
Right.
You learn it after the fact, right? So for me at that moment, being an advocate for my student body at the age of 15 or 16, I didn't know it was going to lead for me to be a county. At that point, I didn't even know what a county commissioner was, right?
Right.
So I just knew that I had the ability to speak for the voiceless, to speak for people who didn't want to speak up for themselves.
To make a change.
And I was okay with that.
Right.
I was like, if you don't want to say it, I'm going to say it.
Right.
And people may not like it, but I don't care. I'm gonna speak my mind, right?
There you go.
And so that kind of mentality, and then even DJing, right? DJing set me up for a public speaking personality, right? So now I'm doing a lot of public speaking. I'm giving speeches. I'm in front of crowds, not knowing that it's flowing so naturally because I DJ'd and I did it, right? And when I was DJing, I wasn't saying, "Oh, one day I'm gonna be a politician, so this is good," right?
Right.
I just did it, and it just one thing led to another, right? Working at DPW,
Right.
showed me what it is to serve the community, right? Because now we're in a position where we're creating change in our community, servicing our community members, cleaning, whatever it was, we were serving the community, right? So now I'm like, okay, now you put all that together, and all those experiences in life led me to, kind of be where I am today. And this may not be the final stop,
right?
But it prepared me for this moment.
Nice.
And a friend of mine who's a DJ that I grew up with, he always said, man, I'd never met anybody as lucky as you. And again, I go back to what I said earlier. I said, I've been told that luck doesn't exist. What exists is timing and preparation. And when those two things meet, that's when those opportunities, flourish. And, people may call it luck, but at the end of the day, it's being ready for whatever life throws at you.
Yeah, people don't know where you're going.
Yeah, and so for that young person that's looking now and saying, wow, Orlando came from the same place I'm in. He walked the same streets that I walked. And look where he is, right? He's an example.
Yes.
It's always setting yourself up for whatever opportunity presents itself. But I always, and I do this when I go speak to some of the young people. In our community, we have a community college, and there's an organization that supports young men moving on and kind of teaching them and molding them into what life can throw at them, helping them prepare for job interviews, how to dress, whatever the case is. And one of the things I tell them is, don't get bogged down with or feeling down of being a product of your environment. Let your environment be a product of you. There you go. Right? So whatever room you're in, control that room and make it work in your favor. Don't let the room work you work the room.
Right.
And so that's kind of the idea, is telling, if I could go back and tell my younger self, right?
Right.
Or that young person coming up, like, what to do is, stay prepared. Don't get caught up in your environment. You come out of that and let your environment work for you.
Yes.
And one of the things now where I'm sitting in the rooms that I've been in, the meetings I've been in, I realize one important thing. Getting involved, when I say get involved,
yes,
if you're not a part of the conversation, then the conversation is about you. And so there's people that sit around tables and make decisions that impact our community that are not from our community.
There you go.
And they don't have to live with the consequences of those decisions. But if we're not at the table to be a part of those conversations, then
you're never heard.
You're never heard, and you don't know why, right? Some people say if you're not at the table, you're on the menu.
Yes.
Right. So that's why I say if you're not a part of the conversation is most likely about you, and it's going to impact you and affect you, and it's decisions that are being made by people who don't have to live with those consequences. And so it's just get involved on a local level. Student government. Start in student government.
Yes.
Student government, get out of there, volunteer in nonprofits. Try to put yourself in rooms where you wouldn't normally think you need to be in, but those are the rooms that make a difference.
Thank you, Orlando, for breaking that down. It's beautiful. No, because you know what? In school, really, there's student government and all that, but they don't really teach you how to really get involved in these situations. But you was the right guy for the position. Obviously, everything led you up to that. Let's take a quick turn here. So let's talk a little bit about family. I know you're a dad of 3 boys. I'm a girl dad. So it's different dynamics, of course. But, we're going to Definitely talk about our challenges here.
Yeah.
How does it feel to be a all boy dad? Because I'm not, so I'm just asking.
Yeah, look, it feels great, man. You know, I don't have to pay for a Sweet 16. I don't have to pay for a wedding, probably. I mean, there's certain things, obviously, delicacies, right, that you have to encounter when you're dealing with a girl versus a boy.
Yes, sir.
You can be a little bit more free, a little bit more loose with a boy. It doesn't matter necessarily. You don't have to worry about doing their hair, whatever the case may be. You can be a little bit more rough.
Yes.
With a boy versus a girl. I always fear, you know, if God ever blesses me with a girl, you know, how delicate I have to be. And obviously I'm probably preaching to the choir, but
yes, sir.
As a boy, you know, as a dad of 3 boys, there's a difference, right? But the good thing is, I guess for me, selfishly, right? I don't have to worry about certain things that, you know, someone like you would have to worry about,
right?
Especially when they grow up and leave the house and things like that.
We definitely have different challenges, that we're gonna face.
Yes.
Right. For me, yes, you hit it in the head, right?
Mm-hmm.
It actually softened me up because I honestly thought I was gonna have boys, but God has blessed me with beautiful baby girls, and listen, life changing, and I'm sure for a boy that is life changing too. Being that we're in different dynamics, right? I do know from being a man, a boy, right? We know that we love challenging our fathers.
Mm-hmm.
And the other day I was having a conversation with somebody and I'm like, you know what? I don't even know why that is a thing. And it is. We at some point challenge. I remember the day that I challenged my dad. That outcome didn't come out quite the way I planned it. Why do you think that is though? And does that happen to you in your house? Because I know you have a 16-year-old. How old are your other boys?
16-year-old, and then 3 and 10 months.
Right.
So I don't think I've gotten to a point. And the 16-year-old hasn't necessarily challenged me.
And when I say challenge, I don't mean any physical.
Yeah, no.
I just mean like a challenge.
Yeah. So
like from son to father.
I think that at the end of the day, whether it's boy or girl, right? Mm-hmm. When they reach a certain age, they know more than you. They think they know more than you, right?
They think, yeah.
And so there's that challenge, right? They want to do something.
We're speaking to the choir here right now. Go ahead, yes.
But they want to do something, and they think that they know what they're doing. They're doing it for a reason. You don't know why. Mm-hmm. You don't know any better. Mm-hmm. It's not what you think, right?
Right.
So I think there's that dynamic, boy or girl, right? But for a boy, it's a little different. You know, and I think for the mom, maybe a boy has there's different challenges, right? That the mom faces with the boy than a dad, right? Because in my dynamic, at least with my oldest son, you know, him and his mom and I aren't together,
right?
But he'll challenge her a different way than he'll challenge me. And so that dynamic of, well, if you don't give me what I want, I'm going to my dad, right?
Exactly.
And whether you live together or separate, I think it serves the same purpose.
Yes.
But I think that the separation gives him the option
to do it.
To say, if you don't, I don't like the way I'm feeling with you, I'm going there, right? And then, so I think it's important that you have established the relationship with the other parent to say, okay, you know what? We're on the same page.
Right.
It's not about choosing or making him think that he can do something with me that he can't do with you.
Of course.
We're going to be on the same page because at the end of the day, we know that what he thinks he knows is not the case.
Right. No, and it also happens, just to be clear, it also happens even if it's in the same household. Yeah. So I did that all the time with my parents all the time. Of course. Trying to get my way across.
Of course. See, now I grew up in a single mom household.
Okay.
So I didn't have that dynamic.
Okay.
With the dynamic I had, I grew up with my grandparents because my mom worked 2 or 3 jobs at that time because her and my dad separated when I was very young. And so my dynamic was being able to go to my grandparents and get whatever I want when my mom was like, you shouldn't be doing that, right?
Listen.
But it's grandparents.
And it's tough to fight the grandparents, man. It's so tough.
There's stuff that my mom and my wife goes through this with her mom. that they do with our kids that we're like, wait a minute.
It wouldn't fly.
We didn't get away with that.
It wouldn't fly. Listen, but they're getting away with murder.
Yeah,
Like, they're getting away with like everything, and everything they're correct.
Correct. And so that's the dynamic. I mean, my 3-year-old now is starting to gain that kind of personality where if my wife reprimands him for something, he'll go, I'm going to dad, right? I'll stomp away and come to me. Right. Mommy doesn't let me do this, or mommy took away this. And I'm like, well, you shouldn't have done. What'd you do for it, right? And he's like, wait a minute, like that wasn't supposed to happen.
Not at all.
And so I think that what we're learning now, at least in my household, is my 3-year-old, man, he has an amazing personality at just 3 years old. Sometimes I forget he's 3.
Yeah.
And lately he's been going to my wife and going, you're the girl and we the boys. You stay over there and don't bother us, right? Because now I have my 10-month-old who's also a boy. He's like, we the boys, you get out of here. And so it's just, man, but those are the moments that you have to be around to cherish, man. Because those are the things that you know, from with my 16-year-old, because I was always DJing and working, I missed out. I missed out on a lot of those little moments, man. Like I didn't go to the zoo with them. I didn't go, you know, to the birthday parties and having those conversations, learning his personality.
Yes.
Like I wasn't absent, but I was always working, right? So as a DJ at that time where I was really deep in it, I was DJing Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So what happens on the weekends? The birthday parties, the going out. And so I missed out on that stuff. And I think now I've been given the blessing of having almost like a second chance. But because of not having to DJ anymore is really what it is, that, you know, when I'm done with my craziness of the day, I'm able to be home. And if I don't have anything else going on, be able to
be a part of those
moments.
A
part of those moments, yeah.
And it's very important and vital to our kids for us to be there for them, of course. And you know, I was thinking the other day, I was speaking to my wife. There's a book called 5 Love Languages. We've all heard of it, right? Mm-hmm. And I wonder, because even kids, right? Because I was talking to my wife about this. Even kids, we have to kind of like, and this is just me thinking and talking to her, right? I was like, wow, this book also could apply for kids. We need to learn the love language that the kid kind of like likes to receive, right? Mm-hmm. So if it's gifts or if it's attention or if it's affirmations, it should be all of it going on in the house, right? Not just one, not just the other, because there are parents out there that, unfortunately, because of their crazy lifestyle and they're working 3 jobs, you know, we don't do these things on purpose. We're just trying to find the better way for our kids,
correct,
right, in the future. But in all that, like you said, we miss out on things, right? So then we may think that us dropping off a gift once in a blue, every, you know, the new toy, the new PlayStation, the new Xbox, whatever it is, that's enough for the kid, when really all the kid needed was a hug.
Yeah.
All the kid really wanted was you to be there at their game. All the kid wanted was for you to take him to the park or to the zoo, like you mentioned. So that's important. And I'm glad you got a second chance. Like you mentioned, we spoke before, where you feel like at this point you're reconnecting, of course.
Yeah, and it's crucial, man. It's crucial because you look back and, you know, you just say, wow, if things were different, right? But again, I go back to saying everything happens for a reason, right? God, in a certain extent, was preparing me for whatever the next step was.
Yes, sir.
And in that preparation, you have to go through the ups and downs. You have to go through whatever it is that's presented to you at that moment, because you don't know why it's happening, but it's happening for a reason, you know, and whether you believe in it or not, everything, you know, one thing channels the next. And, you know, when you look at it in hindsight, you're like, okay, so that's why
this happened.
That happened. But at the moment, again, you don't know why it's happening. That's why I always tell people, never shy away from an opportunity, never not take a risk and live later on going, man, what if I would have done that?
I should have taken that risk.
You know, I should have taken that risk. And if it didn't pan out, at least I know I live with the satisfaction of knowing I tried it and it wasn't in my cards. It wasn't for me. And so that's why it's important to just, you know, take whatever life throws at you and just run with it and just see what happens.
Of course. You and us speaking before earlier, you had spoken to me about your youngest. and you was getting into the story about, yes, now you're this figure in the community, right? You have 4 hats that you're wearing. You're involved in the community. Your wife was pregnant at the time, 7 months. You was getting into the story about something happening to your son.
Yeah. So when I say 2023 was truly, and I said this in my speech when I got sworn in January, I talked about 2023 being truly a roller coaster of emotions. And the ultimate test of taking what life throws at you, dealing with it, and seeing how you come out on the other side of it,
Right.
and it building your character and your strength. So on top of everything else that was happening, all the opportunities that were presenting themselves, all the doors that were opening, my wife was pregnant. She was pregnant with our third son, or our second son, my third. But early on in the pregnancy, at 3 months, and this is why it's kind of crazy that we even like dove right into this endeavor, knowing in the background what would happen, but not knowing how to deal with it, right? So early on in the pregnancy, at 3 months, there was no talk of county commissioner, none of that stuff. It was just regular work.
Right. A lot of work.
Yeah,
It's not regular.
and
It's a lot of
that's
work.
I mean, when you talk about the household, like my wife is also now an elected official.
Listen,
She's in a high profile position herself in government and working, in social services. And so it's a high demand job as well.
it's a lot happening.
Being elected in meetings, late night, whatever.
Right.
And so 3 months into the pregnancy, we go for the normal anatomy scan, the first anatomy scan that they schedule. And it's the cardiologist, the pediatric cardiologist, they do an echo, right? They're looking at the baby's heart and how it's developing. And we find out, during the scan, the cardiologist comes in and he tells us that at that point, the baby had a defect, a heart defect known as Tetralogy of Fallot. Tetralogy of Fallot, it's a rare condition, but not uncommon, right?
Right.
And so in a nutshell, Tetralogy of Fallot, it's 3 or 4 different conditions of the heart, developmental.
At what point of the pregnancy?
3 months.
3 months. Okay.
3 months.
They were able to detect that.
Correct.
Okay.
And so Tetralogy of Fallot is 3 or 4 different conditions of the heart. The main issue being the 2 main arteries. One, blood travels into the heart. The second one, oxygenated blood, so blood with oxygen, travels out of the heart and into the lungs.
Right. Okay.
They're supposed to develop at the same size. The one with the oxygen was smaller. All right?
Okay.
On top of that, there was a space between the left and right ventricles. So there was a gap. There was another opening at the top. And because the arteries weren't developing the same, the heart was overworking itself and it was building some excess muscle around the bottom, right? So these are all this combined is Tetralogy of Fallot.
Okay.
So cardiologist comes in the room. He goes, hey, this is what I'm seeing. With this condition, the only repair is surgery. Like we're only 3 months in, right?
Man.
And he's like, the baby's going to need open heart surgery. Just like that. And just kind of broke it down to us. He said, in a miracle situation, that artery that carries the oxygenated blood, we hope it would expand and become the same size as the other one, right? And they would develop together.
Right.
The issue is at that point, and even throughout the pregnancy, the baby's not using it, right? It's developing, but they're not using
That
it.
is not being used, right?
And so he's like, yeah, in a miracle situation, it just grows on its own naturally, and the baby's born, and everything's fine.
Right.
He said, but we don't see that happen. So the most common probability is that the baby is going to need surgery.
Right. Right.
What we don't know is when.
Okay. And at this point, 3 months in, you're learning about this with your wife.
Normal ultrasound day, anatomy scan, whatever, we find that out. We go home, We call our parents. Hey, can you meet us at the house? My mom comes over, her mom comes over, and we're like, so there's a good chance that the baby's going to need heart surgery when he's born. And, you know, our parents, old school, they're like, nothing's wrong with the baby. The baby's going to be fine.
Of course.
And we're like, okay, well, we're more logical, like going, no, guys, you need to accept the fact that this is going to happen, right? Yeah. What the doctor told us was that we don't know when, right? So with Tetralogy of Fallot, which in the 50s, they used to call blue baby syndrome, because the babies would be born blue because they were getting lack of oxygen coming in.
Okay.
And at that time, they didn't even know how to deal with it, right? They would just naturally let it be, and whatever happened, happened. Wow. This day and age, modern medicine, they've perfected a way to correct it, right?
Right.
Even just a few years ago, it would take 4 or 5 surgeries. Today, it takes 1. Doctors told us all that. He said what happens is when the baby's born, the blood starts flowing through those arteries. If he's getting a good amount of oxygen through, he's fine. We just monitor it, and then we'll plan for surgery. But the surgery, we won't wait longer than 5-6 months. That would be the max that we wait before we go in. Right. If he's born and he's not getting enough oxygen, worst case scenario, he's going right into surgery at birth. That was the scale. At birth or 5 months. Anything in between is, we have to monitor it.
So at 3 months of pregnancy, you mean to tell me that at that point, from that point on throughout the pregnancy and everything else that's happening in your lives, you're worrying, your biggest worry is this?
Yeah, and so the idea of becoming an elected official, like none of that had presented itself yet.
Oh, wow. Okay.
We're just living our normal lives with our jobs. Yeah, they're, high demanding jobs. Serving, she was elected. Yeah, she was on the school board. But there was not the added county commissioner stuff.
Right.
Which the added to it that threw the curveball in is the campaigning part. Like if I was just appointed to the county commissionership and then I didn't have to campaign for another 2 or 3 years, that would be different, right? Because it'd be like serving on another board.
Of course.
Right?
Right.
But the idea is running a campaign, meaning I'm out every day, up and down, coming home late while my wife is, pregnant. So now we don't know that yet, but we know the baby is going to need open heart surgery at some point within the first 5 months of birth. Worst case scenario at birth, best case scenario 5-6 months down the line. So now we're going through the pregnancy, right? 3 months, 4 months, 5 months. Now at that point, our doctor is from Hackensack. He said these cases are best served in New York at Columbia University Hospital, New York Presbyterian. It was either there or Mount Sinai, based on your insurance. So we got Columbia. He said your entire pregnancy care from this point on is getting transferred to Columbia. So now on top of everything else, we got to travel to New York for doctor visits. And as the pregnancy, as pregnancy progresses, they go from once a month to every 2 weeks, up until like once a week, right? So now we're going into New York on top of everything else.
There's a lot happening.
All of a sudden, right? So now we're kind of dealing with this. And, as normal people, we start Googling stuff and what can happen, what can't happen. And, in the back of our families, we're still like, nah, everything is going to be fine. But us being, kind of more in tune with this day and age, we're like, the baby's going to have open heart surgery, right?
Yeah.
And how do we deal with that? We have a toddler. At that time was 2 years old. And who we're going to leave him with, right? And how's that going to happen? So all that is going through our mind. Fast forward 9 months now into the pregnancy. I'm now a candidate running a campaign. I've now been appointed to the board. Now, leading up to that, before all that happened, it was, hey, babes, like, this is presented to us. We know, no one knows in the public that our baby is going to have open heart surgery, that we're dealing with that. We kept that between us and our parents.
Right.
But in the back of my mind, I'm like, okay, we're presented with this opportunity to be a candidate, be in a position, an elected position, county government. We know what to, now we know that we're going to eventually go through this with the baby while all this other stuff is going on, because we kind of mapped it out, right? If the baby was due in May, right? So if the baby's born in May, I'm in the middle of a campaign, right? But if the baby needs surgery in the first 5 months, now we're talking September, October. Elections in November.
Right.
That is the heart of the election, right?
Yeah.
Then how long we're going to be in the hospital? I'm not going to leave you alone, but can I fulfill both? Can I be both?
Right.
Because we're in this to win.
Of course.
And she knows that. She's like, no, we're in this to win. So we're going to have to figure this out, right? And so kind of mapping all that out and just saying, let's just take it one day at a time. And we have the support of our family, and whatever we need to do, we'll deal with it as it comes, right?
Right.
Come May, I'm already campaigning, right? I was selected in February to be the commissioner candidate.
Right.
In March, I was appointed to the seat. Now April comes, May. Now May, my wife goes into labor, right? And we knew that when she goes into labor, we had to go to New York. Yes. So, water breaks, whatever the case is.
Right.
And we bounce, right? We go to New York, we go to the hospital. We're like, this is happening. They check her, and she was like 6 centimeters dilated. And the nurse was like, oh, you having this baby tonight.
Yes.
So now in my head, I'm like, okay, we're having this baby tonight. If the baby needs surgery immediately, what's the next steps, right?
Right.
And the hospital was ready.
Right.
We go into the labor room. They know the case. They know what we're dealing with. The nurse, when my wife was actually about to give labor, go into labor, the nurse goes, I texted everybody. This room is about to get packed with a lot of people because of the condition of the baby. So you had the surgeons there. You had the NICU. You had the regular doctors. You had the OBGYN. You had everyone there ready for whatever happened when the baby came out.
Wow.
Right? Baby comes out. Baby comes out. Totally normal.
Right.
Pinkish. Oxygen levels are great.
Right.
He's crying. It's just a normal baby. Okay. Everybody's like,
okay.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
We're good.
Right.
Baby comes out. Everything's good. Right. And they take the baby away, clean him up. We're good. Nurses, doctor comes in. They check him. They're like, he's doing great. Looks like you guys will be going home normally.
Right.
2 days, whatever it is. And
right.
And then you'll have the follow up with the cardiologist, and they'll tell you how everything's going to play out.
Right. Okay.
So we leave the hospital in the 2 days, and cardiologist came down and said, listen, baby's good. We know he's going to need surgery eventually. We don't know when. We're going to send you home with an oxygen monitor.
Okay.
You're going to monitor his oxygen twice a day. If the levels drop below 90, you just come to the emergency room. If you can't make it to New York, you go to Hackensack. They'll transport the baby to New York.
In the birthing process, that was the indicator?
The oxygen levels.
The oxygen level?
Yeah.
So they checked it right then and there?
Yeah, immediately.
Okay.
Immediately when he was born and they took him in, they slapped the monitor on him.
Gotcha.
And that's the condition, the heart defect that he had. The effect of the defect is the oxygen levels.
Got it.
Right?
Okay.
Because that artery was smaller than it should have been. So he's not getting enough oxygen into his lungs.
Understood.
And so everything was kind of normal and stabilized and good. We come home with the baby. I go back out to kind of campaign because I'm still campaigning. Right. I have to be at events. I have to be. And, my team was phenomenal in, telling me, you go do what you got to do. Because, okay, hey, the baby's born. Nobody knows about the heart condition yet.
Nobody. Wow.
Everybody just is like, okay, your wife gave birth. Go handle your business. We'll see you in a couple days.
Regular paternity leave stuff. Yeah.
That's it, right?
Yeah.
And so now, boom, we're done. We're home. We're monitoring the baby's oxygen levels twice a day. A month into the pregnancy, or a month of being home. So at 1 month old, we wake up one morning. It was like 5 a.m. and we change his diaper, feed, right? And then we check the oxygen level. Right. And it was below 90. It was like 87. And so we kind of look at each other and we're like, okay, like we know we have to go to the ER.
Yes.
Pack him up. We get in the car. We go to Hackensack. And Hackensack takes him in. They knew kind of what was playing out. And so they checked him. They stabilized him. His oxygen levels were stable. But they're like, okay, he's stable. but we're still going to transport him to New York so they can check him out.
At Columbia again.
At Columbia.
Okay.
So they get the ambulance, pick us up in Hackensack. I follow the ambulance. We go straight to New York, right into Columbia. His cardiologist was waiting for him.
Okay.
The pediatric cardiology team comes down to the emergency room. They're like, nobody touch this baby till we check him out. And there was one of the nurse practitioners from pediatric cardiology that stood with us the entire time.
Okay.
So they go through the process and they check him out. A few hours later, his cardiologist comes down and he goes, baby's ready for surgery. Now we're planning out 5 months down the line.
Yeah.
He's like, baby's a perfect size and a perfect weight to receive the surgery. No need to wait. Let's get it done now.
Let's do it now.
So now we go into crisis mode, right?
Yeah.
And again, nobody knew, right? So now it's like, okay, this is happening, right? So what do we do? So the doctor said, listen, you're going to go home. He's stable right now. Tomorrow you're going to get a call from the surgery department. They're going to schedule you for 1 week from today. So this was a Wednesday. They're going to schedule you for next Thursday.
Right.
And we're going to get you in and we're going to get the surgery done. Okay, this is happening.
While the baby remains at the hospital.
No, we were sent home.
Oh, okay.
The doctor said, you're going to go home. He's stable.
Okay.
If we see another drop, you're going to come back and we're going to keep him. Right?
Okay.
So we're like, okay. Because he said, look, this is going to keep happening. But there's no need of going through the stress of this. He's in a prime position to receive the surgery.
Got it.
We go home. Next day, we get a call from the surgery department, the surgeon. They went over the detail. They said, look, we got you on the schedule for next Thursday. The surgeon called us, broke down everything that was going to happen, how it was going to work out. So now we have until the next week, to now prepare ourselves for this surgery.
Right.
And the stay at the hospital, right?
Right.
So, we let our families know, hey, this is actually happening now. We need somebody to stay home with Elijah, who's the 2-year-old going on 3, and, who's going to take care of him, go take him to daycare, and who's going to do this? Like, what's the plan, right?
Right.
And then for me, I'm running a campaign. So it's like, okay, I'm going to be out of commission for at least,
Right.
2 weeks, 3 weeks, who knows, right?
Right.
And how do I now handle that? Being a first-time candidate for an elected position, I can't afford to lose time from the campaign trail and risk losing, right?
Right.
But I also am not going to let that take me away from being there for my family, for my wife, and for my son.
Right.
So, talking to the team, hey, guys, this happened. This is what we need to do. This is what's going to happen. Immediately, the team goes, brother, you go be with your family. You don't worry about this campaign. It's going to be here when you get back. And we're going to hold it down till you come back. That immediately kind of
Like relaxed you.
relaxed me.
Right.
Now, this is June, right? Baby was born in May. We're talking a month later. Timing, whatever. Everything happens for a reason.
Of course.
The campaign trail slows down in the summer. People are on vacations.
Right.
Things slow down a bit. There's certain events, but the real bulk of it picks up in the fall, September, October, November. So that timing of when this was going to happen, it couldn't have happened in a better time. Wow. The way that sounds is like crazy, right?
It sounds crazy.
But it couldn't have happened at a better time. It's almost like it was meant to be that way. Because now I have to take care of my family and the campaign is not as busy. So I'm not really missing anything. It was almost like the perfect timing.
It's the perfect time, and the doctor came at the perfect time to say, "Hey,
the baby.
he's the baby as well."
The baby said, "This
perfect
is how
time.
we're gonna do it. I can't. My dad's busy later.
Yeah.
This is when it's gonna happen." And
Pretty much.
and as crazy as that sounds, when the baby was born, man, he was drinking milk like nobody's business. He got to a certain weight faster than he should have.
Wow.
And in my head, I'm like, he knew what he had to do,
Of course.
to get to this point. Because he was like, it was like nobody, he was like bottle, like we were like, yo, we got to slow down, right?
Yeah.
He got, in 1 month, he was 10 pounds. 10 pounds. And the doctor was like, yo, this kid he's like a 5-month-old baby. He's the size of a 5-month-old baby. That's why we could do the surgery now. So I'm like, he knew what he was doing. He was building up that reserve, knowing what he was about to go through, knowing that this was the perfect time for dad to go through this.
Right.
Because we got an election to win, right? So all that happened, man, at the same time. And so, basically we went through it. So what happened was, when they scheduled us for the following Thursday, the day before the surgery, you come in for checkup, testing. They kind of go through this routine of checking the baby, making sure everything is good, and then kind of telling you what to expect the next day. You're going to come in at this time, whatever. While the pre-op testing was happening, his oxygen levels drop again. I mean, drop like scary level, right? And so the normal oxygen is like 98 to 100%. Right. He went down to like 67. Oh, man. But it didn't affect him.
Okay.
We just knew because the monitor was on.
Right.
So the lady, the nurse, was saying, listen, I'm going to continue the testing, but I want to do it in the ER. Because if something goes wrong with him, we need to take immediate action, right? So we're like, okay, cool.
100%, yeah.
Went down to the ER. They continued with the testing, and his levels dropped again, right? They didn't have to intervene. It just dropped, and then they come back up, right? So after consulting with the cardiologist and the surgeon, because he was scheduled for the next day, the nurse was like, and the cardiologist was like, nah, he's staying here. We're going to call the surgeon, and we want him like
right now.
We want to get this done.
Yeah.
So after a few hours in the ER, the cardiologist came in and he said, I got you on the schedule for tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. So you're going to get admitted upstairs to the NICU, and they're going to continue to prep him. And then tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., he'll be taken into surgery. And that's how it happened. Wow. Yeah.
And how's he doing now?
He's doing phenomenal, man. Yeah. He's doing phenomenal. So look, leading up to the surgery, it's that anxiety of not knowing, right? And then they're running all the tests. 1-month-old baby, they had to stop feeding him around like 12 hours before. Oh, so man. We know for the next 12 hours he's hungry, right? They just kind of giving him.
Yeah.
And then, they're prepping us for what's going to happen. And the surgery lasted 7.5 hours. Full-fledged open heart surgery. Like just full blown, right? And so those 7.5 hours, man, the longest 7.5 hours of my life, bro. It was crazy.
Listen, I am so happy that your son is okay, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Listen, God was on your side the entire time. Everything happens for a reason, like you said. He had that reserve in him. He was ready for it.
I was talking to someone the other day who was asking me the same thing, how the baby was doing, and I said, great. And they were kind of asking, I hadn't seen them for a while, and they were like, man, that must have been crazy. After surgery, the baby coming in and you now having to deal with a baby who just had open heart surgery.
Yeah.
And I told them, I said, no, that wasn't the bad part. The bad part was when they were taking him away for surgery. Yeah, man. Because at that point, that's when I had like my moment. Like I truly threw my hands up. I threw the towel in and I said, God,
you got it.
You got it, man. Like whatever it is that you wanted to happen, you won. Like I tap out, right? Like whatever it is that you needed me to experience, I'm experiencing it right now.
Your faith was tested.
Bro. And the only thing that got us through that moment, those 7.5 hours, was prayer, man. Yeah. Like truly. And I'm not the utmost like religious kind of guy. Like I believe in God. I believe in faith. I believe in religion. I probably should be going to church every Sunday, but I hit or miss. Schedules get involved. But I always find time to have that moment with God in a personal sense. My wife is the same way. She's, she's faith. She has a strong faith, and strong beliefs. But at that moment,
Yeah.
you're just so vulnerable
gave it
because
all up.
there's just absolutely nothing you could do but sit there and wait and hope and pray that everything's going to turn out great, because you have no control.
No control at all.
No control of the situation, of what's happening in there. And then you can't even, so you couldn't stay in the room because they had to clean the room out and disinfect it and sanitize it to receive the baby. So they put us in this other like family waiting room that was reserved for us. And it was literally just her and I in there, like hugging for like those 7.5 hours, crying, praying, because that's all you can do, right? And that's why I say I just kind of threw my hands up and said, whatever you decide is what it will be, right? And if, whatever the outcome is, it's for a reason, and, we leave it in your hands. And that's really what it comes. And then that feeling after 7.5 hours, because, people are texting us, our family's texting
Everybody,
us, how everything's going. Every couple of hours, they tell you take a nap, but who's sleeping at that time, right?
Who's thinking about napping? Yeah, right.
And then our parents are like, don't worry about anything at the house. You focus, stay in New York.
Right.
Elijah's fine. We're taking care of him. You guys just focus on Elias. And and you're just so vulnerable at that moment. And you're just like, well, this is what it is. Yeah. And then 7.5 hours later, you get the call that everything turned out great.
The doctors kept on checking up on you guys so often? Or it was just 7 hours?
7 hours straight, man, of just silence, bro. Silence.
Oh, man.
It was the worst feeling in the world, man. It was silence. Like, there's no check-in, there's no update, there's no nothing, man, until the final call, the first call is from the surgeon that says, hey, where are you? That's what it was. And we're like, we're in this family waiting room. He goes, everything turned out great. I'm coming to see you. Man, when you talk about a weight or a sigh of relief, it was, we just kind of looked at each other and cried again. Was like, oh my God, everything turned out great. He did great. And we're like, oh, bro.
He's a champion, man. He's a soldier.
And the thing I can appreciate the most was from day one, when it was discovered at 3 months, to the surgery. Everything the doctor said would happen, happened.
Wow.
And they walked us through every step from that point to that point. There was no surprises. And I think that truly was giving us a little bit of that peace of mind.
Right.
That when the next step happened, we knew it was going to happen, right?
Right.
It wasn't a shocker. There was no curveball thrown at us.
Right.
And we went through the motions. We went through the steps. And the way they laid it out, that's how it was up until the point, right? And even after that, post-care, and he did great.
Right.
Man, less than 6 or 7 or maybe 8 hours after the surgery, everything was off him. He was drinking from a bottle.
I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah, man. 24 hours post-surgery, we were already out of the NICU and in a regular room.
Okay.
And he had nothing on him.
So you was reunited with your child? Nothing.
He had nothing on him, no additional care.
Wow.
Occasional pain medicine, but nothing. And, they kind of gave us the post-care instructions. We went home, and probably a couple weeks after the surgery, we followed up with our actual cardiologist in Hackensack. He checked us out. They do the echocardiogram.
Right.
And he told us, after the echo, he came in and he goes, you guys are great. He said the surgeon did a phenomenal job. If you didn't know that he went through that, there's nothing that shows he went through it.
Yeah.
Everything was corrected. Everything was fixed. Wow. He's a normal whatever, right? And so he'll have to see a cardiologist for the rest of his life every year. There's 15 to 20% chance that in the teenage years he may need a simple kind of procedure to kind of fix or check on everything. But outside of that, right now there's no signs of any future surgery. There's no risk. There's no nothing. Up until the last cardiology visit that we had, which was about 6, maybe 8 weeks ago.
Right.
The doctor said, you have a normal baby. There's no issues with the heart.
Beautiful.
He can go out, he can get sick, he can do everything. There's no concern for anything. You don't have to see me for another 6 months.
Right.
And after that, it won't be until every year. There's nothing of concern.
Right. Beautiful. Man.
So
listen, you mentioned before that you're not that much of a religious person, but you believe in God and you believe in prayer. You know, I have found in my adulthood that I have to make time, at least in the morning when I wake up, to just do a quick one-on-one with God. Because yes, busy schedules. Yes, you know, your life gets hectic.
Yeah.
The kids, the family, jobs, multiple jobs, right? But we all have to find that moment, or even throughout the day. I'm praying while I'm driving, man. I'm praying while I'm walking somewhere. I'm praying while I'm going to work or whenever. I just find the little moments just to thank God for everything.
And I think it's important. You hit the nail right on the head. It's important to thank God versus ask him why.
Yeah.
Right? Because we oftentimes find ourselves questioning why versus being thankful for what is presented to us, right?
Right.
And yeah, I think everything's a test too, man. You have to go through certain things in life, and that helps, you know, build your character for the next time. You know, those experiences are to prepare you for whatever it is that comes. And for everybody, that's different, right? What the next thing is for you is different for me.
Right.
What your experience is, what your test is different than what my test is. And but you have to go through those things, you know, to see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Like you said before earlier, you know, everything has a purpose. Like you may not understand what you're going through at the moment. Even right now, at the current time, we're probably going through things, right? Yeah. But we don't understand them right now. But we know that there's a purpose attached to this, and we will know that purpose as life moves forward. I am so glad that your baby is okay, man. I know that you guys probably every time you look at him, it's like,
yeah, man, it's a joy, right?
Yes.
And then, you know, even now, he's great, right? He doesn't have any issues with the heart. There's no additional care necessary. But the challenge is getting away from being delicate with him.
Yeah, I could imagine.
And letting him be a normal child, especially while having a toddler, and saying, you know,
mingle with your brother.
Yeah. Or
right.
Like yelling at him for doing something that we think is too rough or something like that. Like, or maybe finding the balance of not showing more care for the baby versus him, knowing that in reality, the baby don't need that extra care, right? They can be normal.
Right.
But we forget that sometimes, right? And it's like, it can't always be now, knowing, right, in hindsight that we're past any risk and we went through what we went through. Now it's like, okay, we can't forget that we still have another child that needs our love and care. The baby doesn't need the extra attention. We don't have to be so delicate with him.
Right.
We can let him cry a little longer than normal.
Right.
He's fine.
Man, that must have been tough in the beginning to kind of like distinguish how to react, right? Because only time itself will kind of like keep you, okay, a little bit less guarded in that regard, right? But in the beginning, it must have been like you was on them for any little hiccup.
No one outside of her mom and my mom came to our house for the first like 6 months. Because even post-surgery, right, you're in that time frame of he can't get sick because he's still healing on the inside. He can't catch an infection. We can't give him medicine because it'll speed up his heart rate. So there's that, you know, even after surgery, he's fine. Now the surgery, he's still 1 month old, right?
Right.
For at least 5 months after that, no one stepped in my house, man. Nobody. When I got home from campaigning, because now I'm still going into crowds of hundreds of people, shaking hands, you know, kissing babies, doing the political stuff. Coming home, knowing that now I'm coming home to a child that really can't get sick, right? And so that addition, like, I mean, you talking about stepping in the house, taking off my clothes before going upstairs, going bagging it, you know, going right into the shower before. So that all happened for like 6 months until we kind of got the green light from the doctor that it's okay if he gets sick. He's a normal baby and we can treat him normally, right? So now
Even at that point.
Well, yeah.
Now that door's open.
You know, Spanish families at the end of the day are like,
man,
you don't, you know, you're not allowed to see the baby until he's 3 years old.
Exactly.
No kissing the baby. Don't come from anywhere, right? So, and then COVID is still out there.
Yeah.
Right? So at the end of the day, it's still that, there's that extra layer of protection, but it was a little bit more free. I mean, even till today, I mean, people still sanitize their hands and wash their hands before they pick up the baby, but there's more of that peace of mind that he's normal.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, this past Sunday was the first time he got sick on us. And he was a bit congested, and we're like, okay, cool, you know, whatever, a little virus or something like that. Then all of a sudden, Sunday night, he just broke out into this like whiny, cranky mood that we have never seen before.
Right.
Because even when he was like going through the heart stuff, man, that kid never cried. Wow. Never cried, was never hurting. And so we're like, no, this isn't normal.
Little soldier, man.
And so we call the doctor because they have like a kind of a 24-hour nurse on call.
Right.
And she's like, well, has he slept? And we're like, well, nah, he didn't really take his nap, but he's been cranky. She's like, put him in a car and just drive. He'll fall asleep in the car seat. If he's just overly tired, then that should help.
Yeah.
So we're like, okay, cool. Put him in the car. Sunday night. Now, mind you, the 3-year-old is now subject to this stress because we can't leave him home alone, right?
Right.
So we're like throwing pajamas on him, throw him in the back of the car. He don't know what's going on. We're just taking a drive, right? He's tired. He's just by default,
he's cranky.
He's dealing with this too, right?
Right.
So we feel bad for him that he has to go through this with us. So we're driving, man. 45 minutes, we're driving. Baby sleeping, whatever. Wakes up, he starts crying again. We're like, now something's wrong now. We go to the, call my mother-in-law. We're like, can you take Elijah while we take the baby to the urgent care?
Right.
Something's definitely wrong with him. And so, long story short, we get to the urgent care, and he has a double ear infection. Wow. So whatever virus he was battling, the congestion builds up, caught the back of his throat and the ear, and developed 2 ear infection on both ears. Wow. So immediately, my wife is like, okay, we need to call the cardiologist. We need to call she literally said, should we take him to Colombia? Like, she's just freaking out because this is the first time he's actually sick post-surgery. And one of the concerns is, okay, well, what medicine you want to give him? Will that affect his heart?
Yes.
Will that speed up his heart rate? Like, he's still just 6 months or 9 months old. So that immediately starts going through her head. And even she's like, she literally said, should we go to Colombia?
Yeah, man.
And I'm like, that's how good the experience was there, by the way.
That's good, man.
And so, I'll fight for that hospital right now. I swear, especially that cardiology department. But nonetheless,
they did a phenomenal job.
They did a great job. And so nonetheless, the pediatrician at the urgent care goes, yeah, we know, his condition because we told her. She's like, but medicine, antibiotics will be fine. Started the regimen. She said, follow up with his pediatrician a couple of days and everything will be fine. And now he's fine. I mean, he just went through a normal kid virus, infection. We gave him antibiotics and he's been fine ever since, man. And he's just a normal kid.
I'm glad you guys were able to identify because now you have 2 young boys in the house, right? So you were able to identify very quickly somewhat of a favoritism between the stress levels, right?
Yeah.
So you was like, okay, let's analyze this whole situation because our 3-year-old is going to be affected one way or another here as well. Even him taking trips on the car just to be a part of that, right? But overall, man, I'm glad your baby's okay. I'm glad he's doing fine.
Man, baby's doing great. 3-year-old is doing great. He's a normal 3-year-old, and the dynamic is phenomenal, man. It's just now dealing with the normal work life balance, right? Of having 2 kids, they're both going. Who's taking them to daycare in the morning? What time do they have to be picked up? Wait, I have a meeting tonight. You also have a meeting tonight.
That's
Mom, can you pick up the boy? Like, it's just that normal everyday stuff that for us is normal. I'm sure it's not normal probably for the average Joe, but
right. It's become normal to you.
It's
You guys are wearing multiple hats in the house. Period.
for us, it's normal. And my house is literally a like 24-hour kind of.
Kind of like a 24-hour operation going on.
It's
in the
almost
household.
and I'm blessed overall because my wife understands it. When I first met her, she was already elected.
Okay.
The group of people that we surround ourselves with, some were also elected. One of the challenges of being with an elected official, whether it's, dating or married, is understanding that lifestyle. And a lot of people can't deal with it, right? I have a friend of mine who's also elected that just could never have a stable relationship because that person doesn't understand the lifestyle. Why are you in a meeting so late? Why, is it every day? Why you have to, right? And so to the point of why do you have to, why do you want, why are you elected? Why are you doing it? Whatever.
Right.
And so I had to learn that myself and accept her lifestyle.
And what comes with it.
Right? And I think for me, getting involved in it was what worked for me.
Right.
Right. Okay. I'm accepting you for who you are, but we're gonna do this together.
Right.
Right. Because now we're together, and I'm not gonna let you go through this alone.
Right.
However way I can help, I'm gonna help.
Right.
So then now that the roles reversed, because now it's her who needs to accept my schedule and my lifestyle and her understanding what it is because she went through it herself, right? So it was kind of a match made in heaven, so to speak.
Was. Yes.
But it's definitely it's not easy. I'd be lying to you if I tell you we figured it out and it's working.
a day-to-day process
because work, the kids, right? They take priority.
Bulk of the time.
And what most of the time happens is you forget about you and her, right?
Of course.
And then like planning a date night or something becomes like work. Like you got to add it to the calendar.
You really, listen, it's an agenda.
Yeah. And so that,
Yeah.
it takes a certain individual to accept that and be willing to be all in for the long haul because not everybody can accept that and live that lifestyle. I've seen it destroy families and relationships.
I was just gonna ask. Yeah.
And then we kind of learn from those surroundings and see kind of what the mistakes people make and stuff like that, and try not to fall in that trap. But man, the minute you stop thinking about it, you're in the trap.
Right.
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 By the time you blink, 3 months have gone by and you have not gone on a date with your wife. You haven't talked about each other. You're talking about work. You're talking about the kids. You're talking about the schedule, but you're not sitting down to talk about each other. And that happens in the blink of an eye, man. And it you get consumed. You get consumed in it for real.
You're saying that, and I'm getting goosebumps because even a regular lifestyle, right? Husband and wife, my wife and me, and the kids. It's a agenda driven calendar. I could imagine your lifestyle, right? But it's true. We forget to connect with our partner.
Yeah.
And then months will go by, and then you haven't connected, and it becomes like, okay, where were we 7 months ago when we started speaking about this? And then it becomes a disconnect, right? So what I'm getting to is my wife and I are both in like therapy. She goes to her therapy. I go to my therapy. And my therapist had told me, like, you guys need to like work on yourselves, and then you guys go together to therapy at some point.
Yeah.
But even the therapy apart has helped our communication. Yeah. So that's like, we're figuring things out now. Like, we're better at communication with each other and reconnecting with each other because it's true. You blink, 6 months have passed. And especially as a politician in the political world, I'm pretty sure your schedule.
Politician is such a bad word. Elected official. Public servant.
Public servant. I like that. Yes. As a public servant, you guys both are like in that world, and I could imagine you guys have probably the next 7 months planned out agenda wise and stuff like that. So you guys have to make time for each other.
You will get swallowed in a dark hole, man, where it'll take you another 6 or 7 months to crawl out of it if you don't control it. And it takes a lot of self-discipline to not fall into the trap, right? I mean, just a phone, right? As an elected official, you have like part of the job is being in the know of what's happening in the community
all the time.
You learn it from social media. You're looking at, oh my God, so and so posted this. What must be going on? And that alone is a challenge of staying. Like that's my biggest.
It's chaotic.
Yeah, my biggest vice is not being able to put the phone down and just leave it there and not like look at it and kind of because then you get a phone call or a text message and they be like, "Did you hear what just happened?" And you're like, "Man, I missed it," right? And so that alone, my wife is great at that. My wife could get home and put the phone down and forget about it. I have that's my problem. I'll admit it. My issue is, not being able to kind of put that phone down. I think is, that's I personally have to work on that. I know for a fact I have to work on that, and learn, like for both of us too, because then her thing is emails and kind of there's issues at work and her team are texting each other about what's going to happen the next day, and sometimes it's 8, 9, 10 o'clock, and so it's just kind of knowing when to kind of turn it off and just focus on what's happening. But it's a challenge, man. Again, I don't think this is unique to my life, right? Because I'm sure there's other people that have their own unique issues and busyness and craziness and even other elected officials. I'm sure, they have the problem. There's not many that both the husband and wife are elected.
Right.
We're in a unique class.
Right.
But, oftentimes it's one or the other. And when it is, the other person has to be able to take the back seat to whatever's happening and deal with it. And I think because we're both in it, we both understand it.
It works out.
It works out, but it's also a bigger challenge because, it's again, her birthday was this past Tuesday.
Okay.
Right? Dominican Independence Day.
Okay.
My wife is her birthday, February 27th. I had a county commissioner meeting. It's our bi-monthly meeting. We meet twice a month. It just happened to be that day, our African American history program, where we honor individuals from the community, got pushed from the prior meeting to that day because that prior meeting it snowed by us.
Okay.
So we still had the meeting, but we canceled the African American history program. So now, without even thinking about it, I go, our meeting, I have a meeting the day of your birthday, but they added now the African American history program to the meeting, which was also our budget presentation.
Okay.
So now normally where our meeting is, 45 minutes to an hour, we're looking at almost a 2-hour meeting. And it just happened to also be her birthday. So it's like, of course, on the day of your birthday where I maybe plan to come home early and at least, cut a cake and let's spend time together with the family, it's like all this just got slammed on top of it, right? And so those are the things that get thrown at you, man. And you gotta be able to have a thick skin to accept it and, take that moment to breathe and say, okay, you know what? This is the life we chose.
That's it, yeah.
This is what was presented to us, and we'll deal with it as we go.
As an elected official, now that you keep on seeing that these things kind of like keep on like appearing in your path for you to take on the next steps, what are your aspirations?
So I don't necessarily have a particular, position that I'm looking for.
Right.
I'll never say never, right?
Right.
I will never not
take a risk.
Look into an opportunity that's presented at the moment. There's opportunity, right? Within Patterson, there's opportunity, right? There's, becoming the mayor or something like that. And if the mayor ends up seeing this, he may get nervous, but there's becoming the mayor, like that would be an opportunity, right?
Of course.
I'm already at the county level of government. So I probably wouldn't run for local council because it's not below us, but it's almost the same thing, right? So
Kind of like lateral move.
yeah. So I wouldn't probably do that. I would, if anything, I would go up further, right?
Of course.
Unless, there's been commissioners in the past that have left being a commissioner and have become mayors of their towns. So that's a move, or higher office, right? So, obviously the levels of government after a county is state, right? So there's assembly, there's the state senate. So, Congress, obviously, governor. I mean, there's room.
You're mentioning all of these like different positions, and I could only imagine that next step being more hectic, as far as scheduling, as far as like.
Yeah, it don't get better.
Right,
it doesn't get better.
So that's what I was going to tell you. Just get ready for that. Yeah, I know you're ready for that.
It does. It definitely doesn't get easier. Because with more power comes more responsibility, right? We've heard that before. And you're serving a larger base of people, right? So in Passaic County, I'm serving the county, right? We move on to the state level. In the assembly and senate, it's by district, right? But the district could be maybe 4 or 5 towns put together. It's a larger population.
Right.
And then, forget about Congress and, and even the governorship or whatever. Now you're in charge of the whole state. But there's, as an example, not that I'm looking to pursue anything outside of what I'm doing right now, because even getting to this point, I didn't look for this.
Right.
It presented itself. I analyzed it. I talked about it with my family, and we pursued it. Right.
Right.
So that would be the next step for me, would be whatever opportunity presents itself at that moment.
Right.
If it makes sense for me and my family, then we'll approach it.
Right.
There's no specific aspiration for any, but in just kind of an order, right? That would be, those are the avenues that after county, you would, look at maybe pursue state level stuff or a mayor of a town, right? And I say Patterson because I live in Patterson, but if I lived in another town, it would be that, that town as well. So that's kind of the avenue that, if there were going to be a next step, that would be the next step.
Listen, there's going to be a next step. I'll tell you that much. It's going to be a next step. Listen, Orlando, thank you so much for joining me today.
Appreciate you, man.
In my podcast here, the DAS Group Chat. Like you mentioned in the beginning, your schedule's pretty hectic, as you mentioned, right? So we planned accordingly.
Yeah, no, it was good, man.
And it happened today, but thank you for joining me today. Thank you for sharing that intimate story about your son, man. And I'm glad he's doing okay. I'm glad he's well.
Appreciate that.
I hope he continues to do so. I'm happy for all the accolades that you've accomplished so far. And I wish nothing but success. And yes, you believe in affirmations, right? You believe in saying things.
Absolutely, man.
Definitely.
Speaking it into the universe.
Speak it into the universe and it will happen, my brother. But thank you for joining me today. Where can people connect with you social media wise? You can speak to the camera, you can speak to me, however you want to do it. But
I mean, listen, I have my social media, Instagram and Facebook. It's Orlando Cruz. Instagram is Orlando Cruz NJ, like New Jersey.
Right.
And Facebook is Orlando Cruz. And for both Instagram and Facebook, I have Commissioner Orlando Cruz as well.
Okay.
And so there you'll see more of the government work, of course, that we do. And then, the other social media stuff, I kind of mix a little bit of my everyday life,
right,
and kind of work as well. The Chamber of Commerce has a social media page, and the downtown Patterson as well. But at least for me personally, it's those two.
Okay. Where
those two things.
So social media. Before you go,
yeah.
How many social media pages you run? You said.
So I have my personal pages. I have the commissioner pages. I have the Chamber of Commerce,
man,
and the downtown Patterson pages.
That is stressful,
man. And the Wayne Chamber of Commerce as well.
Listen, I only say it because I got 2. I got my personal one and I got the DAS Group Chat podcast, of course. And this is like, I got to post. I got to make sure that people know that this is happening. So that's a whole job. That's another hat, my brother. That's what I'm telling you.
So I can't put the phone down. Then you got to do it in English and Spanish, right? Because at the end of the day, which we didn't really touch on, but as a county commissioner, I'm the only Latino county commissioner in county government of all. It's a 7-member board.
Yeah,
I'm the only Latino, so I am the face of the Latino community.
Yes, sir.
In the entire Passaic County, which is made up of about 550,000 residents.
Wow.
45% of them being Latino. So almost half the county is Spanish, and I'm so that kind of that pressure,
It's a tall
you
order.
know, of kind of representing my
Yes,
community on the county government level, and being the only one, it's a lot.
God knows. God knows who He chose, right?
Yeah.
Thank you for
I'm
joining me,
humbled,
my
man.
brother.
Thank you. I appreciate you, brother. I appreciate the opportunity, and anytime
Listen,
you want to
whenever-
chop it up, I'm here.
That's what I was gonna say. When you do become mayor, when you do become, what you will become, come back and visit us, man.
Yeah, man,
Come back
absolutely,
and sit
man.
down with me, chop it up, and we'll continue, talking about our journey
I'm
and
looking
what we
forward
go
to
through.
it, man. I'm looking forward to it for sure.
But thank you for joining me, my brother. For everyone out there, please share, like, and subscribe. Subscribe to the YouTube page. We're out. Peace.